All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with Lance Brown. Lance, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
So good to be on with you, Kevin. Thanks for having me. I love your podcast. I love what you're doing, and yeah, just thrilled to spend a bit of time with you today.
Absolutely. Same here. Same here. And I want to give a quick shout out to the folks and all the team over at Podcast Guests at that platform because you and we wouldn't even be talking today, Lance, if it weren't for those guys and the work that they're doing. And I got to say, I have met some amazing guests through their platform and the work that they're doing. And anytime they send me an email saying, "Hey, Kev, you should check out, Lance and see what he's doing. We think he might be a great fit for your show." And I've had such a great experience that anytime I get an email like that, I'm like on it.
Yeah. So Kevin, I don't know about you, but I met my spouse way before online dating, and so I never had that great pleasure of having technology match me with an ideal partner. So it's kind of fun to meet awesome hosts like yourself using technology and kind of a matching service. But that's how the kids are doing it these days. But we
Yeah,
had
right.
to do it the old-fashioned way, right?
Yes, yes. We had to actually get out there and go talk with people and stuff all by ourselves. And so,
Yeah.
yes. So, well, what I'd like to do, Lance, is start off by I want to turn it over to you so that we can set a little bit of context here, and give people an idea of like who you are, so we can talk about what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work that you do, and even like I would love it if you could give a little bit of backstory and even talk about how you even got into doing the work that you do and making your impact like you do in this world.
Sure. So much of what I've learned came from the school of hard knocks. And I mean that quite literally. As a door-to-door salesman for a 15-year period, I figure I've knocked over 100,000 doors. I've got the
Wow.
calluses to prove it. And that's not just 100,000 doors, that's 100,000 people with unique backgrounds, perspectives, and insights. They say an expert is just somebody that has failed multiple times in a very particular area or field. And Kevin, if you've never tried door-to-door sales, it's like emotional whack-a-mole. It's painful. And so much of what I've learned didn't come from the safety of my college classrooms. It came while I was trying to earn those degrees. So, I got a bachelor's degree in marketing, a master's degree in executive leadership, but I like to say while I was paying for those, I earned a PhD in people. And as my expertise grew, naturally, I grew into management positions and training positions, and I've recruited, trained, and managed nearly 600 salespeople.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
was always fascinated by the variance in results, in performance. I mean, here these guys had the same exact product they were selling,
Okay.
same sales script, same training, a lot of them same manager, same area, and yet the results varied significantly. And
Mhm.
so I was always trying to, I became a student of influence early, and I've since continued that study into a more academic setting where I work now at a university. I am the director of fundraising, and so I talk people out of millions of dollars in an effort to promote and serve these noble causes. But I also teach a business class as a part-time instructor. And so, as I've looked through my experience and tried to summarize it in a way that other people can relate and connect with, I've developed this simple and powerful framework. I call it the influence formula.
Okay.
And that's what I've been sharing on stages and podcasts like yours across the country over the last 3 years.
Okay. Okay. So tell us more. about that, because that is really fascinating, Lance. And I'm not surprised to hear you share what you did about people in the same environment, with the same tools, with the same resources, with the same training, getting such dramatically different results. So now I'm curious, if we look at, so 600 salespeople that you've worked with, what do you believe separates the peak performers from all those who are not?
Sure. So to have influence with others, I have found that they need to see within you a combination of both credibility and relatability. So I'm going to say that again. To have influence with others, they need to see within you a combination of both credibility and relatability. So really what the influence formula is simply credibility multiplied by relatability equals your influence. So the more credibility you have, meaning your skill set, your competencies, your education, any certifications, the kind of things you would list on a resume,
Uh-huh.
multiplied by your ability to relate to others. And we can get into the details of what builds relatability later, but like any multiplication formula, the more you have, the greater the inputs, the greater the outcome, the more impact, the more reach that you have. And so if I were to try to illustrate like a matrix, I call this the influence matrix. And up one axis, you have credibility. And along the other axis, you have relatability. And we're looking at 4 different quadrants there. Let's say you have neither of those characteristics. That's welcome to Loserville. Okay. You're terrible at
I love
relationships.
that. Welcome to Loserville.
If you're high on credibility, but you struggle to relate to others, you're going to experience what I call a connection gap. And, and we can talk about something with connection gap.
Okay.
But you may have great ideas, great insight, maybe even transformational ideas, but you struggle to bring other people along. You're very linear in your approach. Now, if you're high on relatability, but low on credibility, if you're in that quadrant, then yeah, you sure may be likable and popular and fun. But when the stakes are high, when it's time to talk business, right? When things are serious, your words fall on deaf ears. You're experiencing a shortness in credibility, and I call that an admiration gap.
Okay.
So these two gaps are very prevalent in our relationships, and when we're trying to influence and help others. And really, you talk about those peak performers, the people that are great at relationships. There's usually a pretty healthy combination of both. They're legitimate, but they're also likable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, well, I'll tell you, I'm going to save part of it for later, because I guarantee you right now, Lance, that people listening to this are going to have questions. They're going to be like, well, how can I get more info on this, or what? So I'll make sure later we cover that too. So for anybody who does want more info, they got something to follow up on and stuff.
Sure.
And,
Yeah. Appreciate that.
yeah. So you meant, so I know you do a lot of speaking, and like you said, you teach, you share this with others. Give me an example of somewhere where you like in a setting where you got to teach this, where you just saw the right person or people coming together that just worked in total alignment with what you teach in this area, and they just got it and were able to go and just get amazing results with it.
Yeah. So, part of improvement is first accurately assessing where you're at, right? Without honesty, there's no progress. And so the first thing I'll do when I meet with people is on my website, you can take what I call the influence spectrum quiz. And you can find out if you're a rocket scientist or a comedian. And those are the symbols I use for extreme credibility and extreme relatability. And so what I'll do is I'll have people go through, and I've found that based on people's background, experience, values, stage of life, we predominantly rely on one of these key characteristics or the other for our influence. And so people can see where their natural inclinations are. And then we'll talk to them about these potential gaps in their influence. And then I can share with them how to overcome those gaps. And so, I've done this with multiple audiences. They really seem to relate to it, and they're like, oh, that's why I can't get my teenager to listen to me. Like, I've got credibility for days. I've been on this earth 10 times as long as they have. But then that also illustrates the fact that, yeah, there might be a connection gap there, right? They see you as a dinosaur, right? And so I like to work with parents that are trying to get difficult children to listen. And it's been really rewarding to see those relationships improve. But I also like to deal with executives. And that's because, if we spend too much time on Learjets and in boardrooms and at country clubs, we can lose touch with lower level employees, and we can make decisions in a vacuum, and we can be very linear. And so I advise those kind of leaders to spend time. I don't know, Kevin, have you ever seen Undercover Boss?
I have.
These CEOs, they disguise themselves as low-line workers, and these millionaires, these billionaires that they go and they work the front line at their own fast food restaurants, or they're cleaning toilets. And in a day, it makes for great television, but it transforms how these people lead, because all of a sudden, when they're making policy, when they're making decisions that affect the entire organization, they're once again relatable. And so I love to help executives. I love to help leaders work maybe more on the relatability side, as they recognize that they may have connection gaps. And that's not always the case, right? Again, we all vary, but I love to start with, where are you strong? Where are you weak? And let's work on helping you fill those gaps. And it's so fun to see their organizations grow, their relationships grow as they follow this framework that I've established.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set here, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. So, Lance, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story, your experience around this topic of relationships.
Kevin, this is such a phenomenal question, because I think it's a great reminder that it takes a village, and we have a tendency to get preoccupied with our own input and successes. And, we have these accomplishments and these things, and we do something to get it. But I think we are, by and large, a product of our influences and the people around us. I mean, if you took the time to honestly assess, man, that coach invested in me, that teacher invested in me, that trainer, I am who I am today because of the people around me. This is what I love about your podcast, and your question is we owe a lot of people for who we are and what we've accomplished. So for me, a couple people come to mind, but the first is when I so right out of high school, I actually served a mission for my church for 2 years. I went from a little rural one stoplight town to Miami, Florida. I was in the heart of it, like little Havana. I wish you could have seen me, Kevin, on my first day. I was like, oh, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. And it was eye-opening. But when I got home and I was a freshman in college, in literally the first week, I was in one of the buildings there on campus, and a girl I grew up with cornered me and said, hey, I think you'd be good at this job. And it was the opportunity to go do door-to-door sales.
Okay.
And, on my mission, I'd knocked on a lot of doors, and I looked at it and I considered my options. And honestly, Kevin, people listening are thinking, what in the world would compel you to go be a door-to-door salesman, especially for that long? Well, it was lack of options. Okay. It was either flipping burgers, it was baling hay, or it was knocking on doors. Well, this girl, she actually married the individual that I'm talking about, and we ended up working together. His name's Jordan Sharp.
Okay.
9 years in that capacity. And every time I got a promotion, he did too. And he was always just kind of a step ahead, showing me how to do things. And he followed these principles I talked about. He led the way. His sales performance was stellar, something we all aspired to. He was killer. But he also took the time, had the patience, the understanding, the creativity to help get us to his level. So that very first summer, we went to North Carolina, a place completely unfamiliar and foreign to me. I had no clue what I was doing, but I had confidence in him. And we all have those people in our life where we're like, yeah, if that guy is leading the way, I'll follow. I'll go to battle with him. And he won me over instantly that way, but really became a mentor through a very critical developmental time in my life because again, he led the way, and he took the time to help me get there. Well, interestingly enough, after that time, he left to work at the very university we both work at today. So I assumed his position as the national director of sales. And a few years later, he called and said, hey, I don't know if you're looking, but I'm a lot happier here. And I think I could put in a good word and get you a job here if you're interested. And again, he's one of those relationships where it's like, yeah, I mean, I was committed to that job, but it was really, I was committed to Jordan.
Uh-huh.
And so with his, endorsement, I was fortunate enough to get the job I currently have now. And we've now worked together at Utah Tech University for 8 years.
Wow.
And so this relationship, it took him recruiting me into that and recruiting me out of it. And we've worked together in a professional setting now for nearly 2 decades. And he's still the guy that I go to when I'm facing serious decisions in my life. Again, because of just who he is. So that's one that's I think has probably impacted my life as much as anybody.
Yeah. And well, I have a follow-up question, but I want to wait because I know you mentioned to me that there's one more person that you want to honor, and this individual is no longer with us, but I want to make sure I want to hear that story too, and then I will ask my follow-up question. So
yeah. So I was asked to speak in my church. I couldn't have been older than 9-10 years old.
okay.
And I remember getting up, standing in front of a scary congregation for the first time, and just doing my best to, convey any thoughts in my heart. And immediately afterwards, this gentleman, older gentleman in the ward named Clyde Tucker, ran right up to me. And this guy was a professional businessman, salesperson for decades. And he could have looked at all of the delivery, the presentation, the things that I did wrong and just brushed me off like, yeah, that guy doesn't have nearly what I have. but I think he was sincere and genuine when he said, Lance, that was the best talk I've ever heard somebody your age give. Man, you have a gift.
Wow.
Now, again, having had all the training and experience I have and listened to hundreds of people speak and just having the tendency to shred them apart, I'm impressed that on that day he didn't do that, but he came up and offered a compliment. And ever since then, Kevin, anytime I've ever had the chance or the opportunity to present, his words have rung loud in my head, and I've thought, I'm good at this, and I've taken pride in it. And now today, my passion, what I love to do more than anything in the world is step on stage and to inspire, entertain, and motivate others.
Wow.
And I wonder, as I sit back, and like you mentioned, Clyde passed away 12 years ago. In fact, I didn't have much interaction with him after that well-placed comment. But I think, would I be doing what I am today? Would I be where I am today if it wasn't for a guy that just took the time to come and offer a sincere compliment that, like I said, literally I think altered the course of who I am today.
Yeah. Lance, how old are you right now? How old are you right now, Lance? How old are you?
I just turned the big 40,
You just turned the big 40. So
hit a milestone.
the comment that Clyde made to you was 31 years ago.
Yep.
And he passed away, you said, about 9, 10 years ago.
Correct. Yeah.
And so 31 years later, here you are talking about this experience that I'm sure in many ways it probably seems like it just happened yesterday.
Yeah. It's vivid. Yeah.
31 years later, you are talking about this. I mean, we don't talk about stuff 31 years later that did not have a profound impact on us. The reason it stands in our mind, the reason you're talking about this now, all these years later, is because that experience that happened in your life when you were 9 years old, that comment from Clyde made such a profound impact on your life. And I can guarantee you that it's because of that comment that you have gone on to do so much of the work that you're now doing to this day. And
Guaranteed. And Kevin, sorry to cut you off, but I am about positive that I'm not the only one
probably not.
that Clyde impacted like that, right? And that's what's so great about people like that, connectors, people that bring light, that lift, that edify, is they impact so many people. I know it's not just me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so if we look, and I'm sure, when I ask you this follow-up question, Lance, a lot of examples will come to mind for you, but I want to challenge you to just like one of them is going to come to the surface, like to the top. And I want to hear about that experience. And so if you look at, the relationship that you have just shared with either Jordan or with Clyde, and the experiences that you have had with either one of them, I want you to think about a time where you were able to have a really huge impact. And hands down, that would have never happened if not for the relationship and the experience that you had either with Jordan or with Clyde. So what comes to top of mind for you as far as the kind of experience that you feel led to share about in that vein?
Well, I you know I the job I have now is I say I'm a fundraiser, but really what I am is a friend raiser. And most people have their day job and then they network on the side. And I'm in the fortunate circumstance to network for my job, 9 to 5. So all day, every day, it's about relationships and it's about connections. And I think had I not learned and witnessed the value of, just the beauty of relationships, that I wouldn't be in this job today. But what I take pride in now is I love connecting others. Whether it's a donor to a dean or a coach to a booster or whatever, and kind of getting out of the way and just watching another relationship flourish, very just win-wins. That's so satisfying to me. And it's been really satisfying to watch my circle of influence grow. When I first was hired to be in this job, I mean, usually people that get development positions or fundraising positions are people that are already built in, really well connected. And I wasn't in this town. I didn't grow up where I currently live and work. Again, I wouldn't have got the job had it not been for Jordan. So day one, I was supposed to raise millions of dollars for these different projects. And all I had was a phone book and a telephone. But 8 years later, I can't go anywhere, Kevin. I can't go to the grocery store. My kids are like, don't let dad go inside. Don't let dad go, because they know they're going to be waiting in the parking lot for 40 minutes because I've ran into so-and-so or so-and-so and so-and-so. And so that has been so satisfying to run into people with a smile on their face, to know that maybe I've had a little impact on them. They've had an impact on me. And to just watch that grow and grow and grow. That's what I taught those sales guys all those years. That's what I teach the people I manage today. And again, that was passed on to me by both of those individuals I mentioned. I'm just such a believer in connecting and the power of relationships. And it's been the supreme source of fulfillment and satisfaction in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will tell you, that comes through loud and clear, Lance. There is no hiding it, how passionate you are about that, and how much relationships mean to you as well. And for anybody listening to this that's just like, man, Kev, I really like Lance. I really appreciate Lance. I like the way that Lance shows up. You've talked about a number of things. And I know in specific, you mentioned your influence spectrum quiz, and I'm sure that got the curiosity of some folks that are probably like thinking like, well, how can I find out more about that? So how can people find out more? How can they check out the quiz? How can they get more information? Any resources or what have you that you can offer, Lance? I want to make sure we do that.
If you go to just lancewbrown.com,
okay,
lancewbrown.com, yeah, that's where I would advise your listeners start. Go and take that influence spectrum quiz. And there's a full version, which gives you a more accurate assessment.
okay.
And then there's a short version for those of us or anybody born after 2000, the year 2000, and has an attention span of, of today's generation and millennials, right? There's a short version. So if you don't want to go through the long version, you just want a short version, that's there too. But you can find out, again, if you're a rocket scientist or if you're a comedian, kind of where those characteristics that you tend to rely on for your influence. And then, yeah, if they want, they can opt in to content for me, a newsletter for me. And I found that really serves people. And, for me, anytime I sit down in any relationship, anytime I'm experiencing struggles, if it's like, gosh, I'm trying to get so-and-so to give up that bad habit, or if I wish Susie at work would start, following policy or be a better team player, I'll sit down and I'll consider this framework, and I'll consider how they view me And it really serves me on a day-to-day basis. And I know it will your listeners as well. So yeah, just go to lancewbrown.com, take that quiz. Great place to start. I'm always happy to help and serve any organization that wants me to come in and elaborate. And so they can find information there on how to get a hold of me for that too.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Lance, I really want to thank you for taking the time to have this conversation today. I really appreciate it. And any last thing you feel compelled to share before we call it a wrap?
The last thing I just think I would mention, thanks for asking that. One of the real big points I try to make is, as I talk a lot about relatability, this is a relationship podcast, and we have the same root word, right? And as I train on how to increase your ability to do that, empathy is a big component, a big key to that. And I think there's two different levels of empathy. There's the kind that we can learn through reading a book, challenging our thinking, but then there's that experienced relatability. It's this idea, or empathy. It's this idea of if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that phrase. That's 9 words that I think combine both credibility and relatability in one, sentence. I've got a buddy that owns a series of addiction recovery homes, and he says that 90% of those he hires are former addicts, former users, people that have been through his very program. Why does he do that? I wouldn't be that effective at helping somebody with their crack addiction when the strongest stimulant I've ever had is Diet Dr. Pepper, right?
Sure.
And so
sure.
These people can look at them and say, if I can do it, you can do it. And that's where I want to leave today. I think if people look at the people they could serve the most, are usually people, I think you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. And I think that's what Jordan did for me all those years ago. Was he was able to help me through the struggles he had and experienced, and was so relatable. And anyway, I just felt compelled to share that. But Kevin, thanks so much for having me. I love this platform. I love the work you're doing. It's just been an honor to spend some time with you today.
Well, you are so welcome, and thank you. Just like I said, really appreciate you taking your time to be here and to share. This has been really awesome. So thank you, Lance.
Thank you. Bye-bye.